That news from Afghanistan comes just as the Women, Peace, Security Summit is set to take place in Washington. Earlier, I spoke with Congresswoman Lois Frankel, who co-chairs the Women, Peace and Security Caucus in the U.S. House. Congresswoman, thank you so much for joining us here on BBC News. This is just the latest report, as we heard about mental health among women and girls in Afghanistan. The dire situation, increasingly dire situation, facing women and girls there. What is your Women, Peace and Security Caucus doing to address this issue?
Well, let's start by saying this is a tragedy, and it's not only a tragedy for the girls and women in Afghanistan, but for everyone who believes in freedom, who understand the importance of girls getting educated. And there's not an easy solution to this. Somehow, we have to find resources to organizations that can get to these young girls, to get them educated. The problem, obviously, is the Taliban. And so how do we help people who in need, who are under-resourced in Afghanistan without interference from the Taliban? But just to let you know, this is a subject matter that we talk about. I'm on the subcommittee that funds our foreign relations portfolio. And although there are some political differences, one thing that we do agree on is the need to get girls educated. Yeah.
You set out a number of goals to be reached by the year 2023, and those goals are, I'll read them out here. Women are prepared and able to participate in efforts that promote stable and lasting peace. Women and girls are safer, better protected, and have equal access to government and private assistance programs, and improved capacity in governments to ensure these efforts are sustainable and long-lasting. Again, those goals were set out to be achieved by 2023. So have they been achieved?
A work in process. In fact, today I met with women parliamentarians from around the world. We were at a reception to kick off a week-long conference sponsored by Romania and the United States to discuss these very issues. And some really outstanding, articulate, deep-thinking women are going to be meeting and talking about this. It's not a magic wand. Let's start with the concept. The concept is that when girls and women have access to education, economic opportunities, are free from violence, and obviously educated, their communities are safer and more peaceful. It also means empowering women, making sure that there's equality, that women are in leadership positions and in government and at the table during peace negotiations. Because the research shows that when women are at the table, peace is much longer lasting.
As we're talking about peace and security, I'd like to ask you about the war in Ukraine as well, Congresswoman, and U.S. support for Ukraine. So there is a Pentagon supplemental package that looks like it could tee up a potential fight in the fall with Ukraine funding. Some Republicans want to scale back that funding. You sit on the subcommittee that deals with Ukraine funding in the House. What do you expect to see in this fight?
Well, I still believe the overwhelming majority of members of Congress understand what's at stake. It's not just the freedom, the lives of people in Ukraine, but it matters for the world. Today, I heard a report from one of the Ukrainian parliamentarians, a woman, and all she could really talk about is getting the weapons. And so, it's interesting because she came from a background where she called herself a peace protester and a peace proponent, and now she says, all she can think about is Ukraine having the weapons to defend themselves. And so I expect that the United States will be in this for the long range.
And final question, Congresswoman, you talked about needing to have women at the table for security and peace. We've heard various proposals now about a path to peace for Ukraine. What role do you think women have to play in finding a peace for Ukraine?
Well, Ukraine is no different than any other country in terms of wanting a long-lasting peace. Obviously, they're not at that stage yet. What we talked about today at this peace and security, Women's Peace and Security session, what we heard from Ukraine is they need to defend themselves. They need to win this war. It's not a conflict. They said it's a war, and we need the weapons to defend ourselves and win it. And at some point, we hope there will be a negotiated peace, and if it's going to be a lasting peace, they have to have women at the table. And women have really stepped up in a big way in Ukraine. They're not only on the front fighting, but they have taken huge positions in support of the armies, and unfortunately are the victims of the tools of war, with rape, children being kidnapped, and of course women having to flee to other countries. But with that said, the women of Ukraine are ready and able to be at that peace table.
We'll have to leave it there. Congresswoman, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.